I, 32M, never thought I'd be writing this post, but recent events have left me questioning everything about my relationship with my mother. The situation is complex and painful, and I'm hoping for some outside perspective on whether I'm making the right decision. I've been married to my wife Dorothy, 30F, for 5 years now, though our story together began even earlier. We met at a college reunion through mutual friends, and I still remember how she lit up the entire room with her presence. Dorothy has this incredible ability to make everyone around her feel valued and heard, and I was instantly drawn to her genuine warmth and intelligence. By our third date, as we walked through the park sharing ice cream and talking about our dreams for the future, I knew with absolute certainty that I wanted to spend my life with her. Our courtship was filled with those perfect little moments that make life beautiful. After 2 years of dating, during which we moved in together and built a life that felt like it had always been meant to be, we got married in an intimate ceremony. We kept it small and personal, inviting only our closest family and friends. It was exactly what we wanted, a celebration of our love surrounded by the people who meant the most to us. My relationship with my mom, Lillian, 55F, used to be something I was proud of. After losing my dad to cancer when I was just 12, Mom became my everything. She worked herself to the bone, juggling 2 jobs, a day shift at an accounting firm and evening waitressing, to ensure I could pursue my dreams. I watched her come home exhausted night after night, yet she always made time to help with my homework or listen to my teenage problems. She made countless sacrifices to put me through college, refusing to let me take out loans even when it meant she had to give up basic comforts for herself. This dedication created a bond between us that I thought was unbreakable. Everything changed 3 years ago when she met Robert, 58M. Initially, I was genuinely happy for her. After 2 decades of focusing solely on me and my needs, she deserved to find love again. Robert presented himself as a caring, established professional who had gone through his own struggles as a divorced father of 2, Jackson, 28M, and Emma, 25F. During their 6-month courtship, he seemed to make my mom happier than I'd seen her since Dad was alive. She smiled more, started taking better care of herself, and finally seemed to be living for herself rather than just for me. Their wedding was small, similar to mine and Dorothy's, and I gave a heartfelt toast welcoming Robert to our family. However, the dynamics shifted dramatically once they returned from their honeymoon. Robert and his children moved into our family home, the house my father had built with his own hands, where every corner held precious memories of him. While I understood the practicality of the decision, watching Jackson and Emma claim spaces that had been sacred to my childhood felt like a slow erosion of my father's memory. What really bothered me wasn't their presence in the house, but how quickly they began treating Mom as their own. Within weeks, their social media was flooded with photos of them with Mom, captioned with phrases like "best mom ever" and "finally got the mother we always deserved." Mom didn't just allow this, she actively encouraged it, sharing these posts with her own emotional captions about how blessed she was to have gained 2 more children. The real test of our relationship came 8 months ago when Dorothy and I announced our pregnancy. We had specifically waited to tell everyone until after the first trimester, wanting to be certain everything was stable. Mom's initial reaction seemed genuinely excited. She hugged us both, cried happy tears, and immediately started talking about all the baby things she had saved from my childhood. However, her enthusiasm was short-lived. At the same dinner where we announced our news, Emma revealed her engagement to her longtime boyfriend. From that moment on, it became impossible to discuss anything baby-related without Mom somehow steering the conversation back to Emma's wedding plans. Every time I tried to engage her in conversations about the nursery or ask for her advice about pregnancy, she would find a way to relate it back to Emma's wedding preparations. When we learned we were having a girl, I was overjoyed. I had secretly hoped for a daughter, imagining building the same kind of close relationship with her that I had once shared with my mom. But even this special moment was overshadowed when I discovered Mom had begun giving away all my carefully preserved baby items, clothes, toys, and even family heirlooms, to Emma, justifying it by saying she might need them soon after getting married. The baby shower incident was what finally broke me. Dorothy had lost her own mother to COVID 2 years ago, and the loss still weighs heavily on her. Mom knew this and had promised to help organize the shower, knowing how much Dorothy needed maternal support during this time. But 2 days before the event, Mom called to say she couldn't make it because Emma needed her help picking out wedding dresses. Her exact words were, "Emma needs me more right now, she's actually getting married, while Dorothy is just having a baby." Those words shattered something in me. The casual dismissal of our child, the implication that Emma's wedding was somehow more significant than the birth of her first grandchild, and the complete disregard for Dorothy's feelings in her vulnerable state, it was all too much. When I confronted her, the argument quickly escalated. I told her she had changed completely since meeting Robert, that she had forgotten who her real family was. She broke down crying, but instead of acknowledging her behavior, she accused me of being selfish and unable to share her love. Robert stepped in then, telling me I was being disrespectful and needed to apologize to my mother. His intervention only fueled my anger. This man who had known my mother for 3 years was now lecturing me about my relationship with her. I left without apologizing, and we haven't spoken properly since. That was 3 months ago. Mom has reached out multiple times, but her messages aren't apologies, they're demands that I be reasonable and accept her new family. Dorothy gave birth to our beautiful daughter Emily last week, and Mom found out through social media. Now she's calling and messaging constantly, insisting on her right to meet her granddaughter. Robert, Jackson, and Emma have joined in, sending messages accusing me of being cruel and vindictive by keeping a grandmother from her grandchild. Dorothy, despite everything, has suggested we might consider giving Mom another chance for Emily's sake. But I can't bring myself to do it. I don't want my daughter to grow up experiencing the same kind of conditional love and divided loyalty that I've witnessed from my mother. I don't want Emily to ever question her worth or place in her grandmother's heart the way I now question mine. Am I the asshole for standing my ground and keeping my mother away from Emily? Am I denying my daughter a potentially meaningful relationship out of spite, or am I protecting her from inevitable hurt? Update 1 First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read and respond to my original post. Your comments and insights gave me a lot to think about, and they ultimately gave me the courage to do something I've been avoiding, having a final, honest conversation with my mom. After carefully considering everyone's advice, I decided to meet with her alone at a small coffee shop near my house. It's a quiet place I used to frequent during my college years, and somehow the familiarity of the setting felt right for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. I arrived early and chose a table in the corner, away from other customers, wanting to ensure we'd have enough privacy for what needed to be said. The moment my mom walked in, I could see the toll the situation had taken on her. She looked tired, smaller somehow, with dark circles under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite hide. As soon as she spotted me, her eyes welled up with tears, and she rushed over, immediately launching into how much she missed me and Emily. She pulled out her phone, trying to show me pictures of Emma's wedding preparations, as if everything was normal, as if we were just having a casual catch-up. I had to interrupt her. I'd spent the previous night preparing what I wanted to say, and I knew if I didn't stay focused, we'd fall into our old pattern of avoiding the real issues. I started by telling her that I needed her to understand how deeply her actions had hurt not just me, but Dorothy and, by extension, Emily. I explained how her absence during Dorothy's pregnancy had affected my wife, who was already struggling with the loss of her own mother during such a significant life event. That's when Mom's demeanor changed completely. The tears dried up, replaced by a defensive stance I'd become all too familiar with lately. She straightened in her chair and said something that still echoes in my mind. "You're being selfish, sweetheart. Can't you understand that after all these years, I finally have the big family I always wanted?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. She continued, explaining that after Dad died, she had dedicated her entire life to me, sacrificing any chance at happiness for herself. Now that she finally had found joy again, she felt I was trying to take it away from her. The way she framed it made me question myself for a moment. Was I really being selfish? But then she said something that changed everything. As she was defending her actions, she revealed that Robert had given her an ultimatum early in their marriage. He had told her that if she wanted their marriage to work, she needed to treat Jackson and Emma exactly the same way she treated me. No differences, no special considerations, no acknowledgement of our unique history together. According to Mom, Robert had explained that his first wife's abandonment had left deep emotional scars on Jackson and Emma. They had severe trust issues, he'd said, and any sign that Mom favored me or my family over them would be devastating to their emotional well-being. Mom admitted that Robert had made it clear that if she couldn't provide this level of equality, their marriage wouldn't last. The revelation left me speechless. When I finally found my voice, I asked her why she had never told me this before, why she had agreed to such an absurd demand. Her response broke my heart all over again. Through fresh tears, she confessed that she was terrified of being alone again. The years after Dad's death had been the loneliest of her life, she said, and the thought of returning to that solitude was unbearable. She had convinced herself that if she just tried hard enough, she could make everyone happy. "I know what I did was wrong," she whispered, clutching her coffee cup so tightly her knuckles turned white. But I told myself it was for the greater good. That having a complete family again was worth any price. I took a deep breath before responding. I explained to her that in trying to make Jackson and Emma happy, she had effectively lost her actual son and granddaughter. I told her that she could have had everything, a loving husband, stepchildren who cared for her, and her original family, if she had just stood up to Robert's unreasonable demands. A real blended family doesn't require erasing existing relationships, it means building new ones while honoring the old. Mom started to argue that Jackson and Emma were her real children too now, but I cut her off. I couldn't listen to that anymore. Instead, I laid out what needed to happen if she wanted to be part of Emily's life. First, she needed to stand up to Robert and make it clear that while she loves Jackson and Emma, her relationship with them is fundamentally different from her relationship with me, and that's okay. Second, she needed to give Dorothy a genuine apology for abandoning her during her pregnancy when she needed maternal support the most. The hope I'd felt at the beginning of our meeting evaporated as I watched Mom's face fall. Instead of considering my words, she immediately started making excuses about how Robert wouldn't understand, how it would create problems in her marriage, how Jackson and Emma would be hurt. That's when I realized that nothing was going to change. My mother was still choosing the appearance of a perfect new family over the reality of her existing one. As I stood to leave, she grabbed my arm, begging me not to go. The desperation in her voice nearly broke my resolve, but I managed to say what I needed to say. I hope Robert and your stepkids are worth losing your son and granddaughter over. The aftermath of our meeting proved I'd made the right decision. While I was driving home, Mom called Dorothy, not to apologize as I'd asked, but to try to convince her to change my mind. She wanted Dorothy to persuade me to forgive her without any conditions, without any real change on her part. Dorothy, who has shown more patience through this entire ordeal than I probably deserve, finally reached her limit. She told my mother not to contact us again unless she was ready to acknowledge her mistakes and make real changes. That evening, Robert called. He was furious, yelling about how I was manipulating my mother with ultimatums and trying to destroy her happiness. When I attempted to explain my position, he talked over me, insisting that I needed to grow up and accept that Mom had a new life now. The conversation ended when I hung up on him mid-rant and blocked his number. Jackson and Emma have since taken to social media, posting thinly veiled messages about selfish people who can't share their parents' love. I blocked them too. Mom has been trying to reach me through other relatives, but I'm standing firm. While some family members think I'm being too harsh, most understand my position, especially after hearing how Robert had essentially forced Mom to choose between her new marriage and her son. Through all of this, I keep reminding myself that Dorothy and Emily are my priority now. I won't let anyone make them feel less important ever again. Sometimes at night, when I'm holding Emily and watching her sleep, I feel a deep sadness for what she's missing. But then I remember that it's better to have no grandmother than one who would make her feel like she matters less than her step-aunt's wedding. Update 2. I wasn't planning to write another update so soon, but something happened yesterday that has completely shattered any remaining hope I had of reconciliation with my mother. The revelation was so devastating that I've spent the last 24 hours alternating between rage and grief, trying to process this new betrayal. My Aunt Catherine, Mom's younger sister, came to visit us yesterday. She's always been the more level-headed of the two sisters, and she wanted to meet Emily and check how we were doing. The visit started pleasantly enough. She brought homemade lasagna, a family recipe passed down from my grandmother, and we spent the afternoon sharing stories and watching Emily sleep in her bassinet. As the evening wound down and Dorothy was putting Emily down for the night, Aunt Catherine grew serious. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup in a way that reminded me painfully of Mom. Finally, she told me she had something important to share, something she'd been struggling with whether to tell me or not. What she revealed made my earlier issues with Mom seem almost trivial in comparison. Before giving away my old baby clothes and toys to Emma, Mom had done something far worse. She had sold my father's watch collection, the same collection he had specifically left for me to pass down to my children. For those who don't understand the significance of these watches, they weren't particularly valuable in monetary terms. Dad wasn't a wealthy man, and none of the watches were luxury brands. But each one had a story. He had started collecting them when he was in college, and each watch marked a significant moment in his life. There was the simple Timex he wore when he met Mom, the chronograph he bought when he got his first promotion, the dress watch he wore at their wedding, and several others. In total, there were 8 watches, each with its own tale. I remember sitting on his hospital bed during his final weeks, when he told me about his wish for these watches. He wanted me to give them to my children one day, not just as timepieces, but as tangible connections to the grandfather they would never meet. He spent hours telling me the story behind each watch, making me promise to pass these stories on to my kids. Mom was there for those conversations. She knew how much they meant to us both. When I called Mom to confront her about this, her initial denial quickly crumbled under my persistence. Through tears, she admitted that she had sold the watches to help pay for Emma's wedding dress. The explanation she offered felt like salt in the wound. Emma had fallen in love with an expensive designer dress that was way out of her budget. According to Mom, Robert had suggested selling the watches since they were just collecting dust anyway. She tried to justify it by saying that Emma needed them more because she was using them for her actual wedding, while Emily was too young to appreciate watches anyway. I couldn't speak. The casual way she dismissed these irreplaceable family heirlooms, the complete disregard for both my father's final wish and my daughter's future inheritance, it was beyond comprehension. I hung up the phone mid-explanation and broke down completely. Dorothy found me hours later in our home office, staring at the only photograph I have of Dad wearing one of those watches, his wedding watch, the one he'd hoped his granddaughter would have on her own wedding day. This morning, Emma posted photos from her wedding dress fitting. The caption was what broke me: beyond blessed to have the most amazing mom who would do anything to make my dreams come true. Can't wait to wear this perfect dress on my perfect day. #blessed, #dream wedding, #best mom ever. Something in me snapped. Before I could stop myself, I commented on the post, revealing that her perfect dress was bought by selling my dead father's watches that were meant for his granddaughter. I deleted the comment almost immediately, but not before several people had seen it and taken screenshots. The fallout was immediate and intense. My phone exploded with messages from Robert's family, calling me bitter, jealous, and accusing me of trying to ruin Emma's wedding. Mom sent a long message saying I had no right to ruin Emma's happiness by revealing this information. She insisted that what's done is done and I needed to let it go for the sake of family harmony. Robert left a voicemail that I couldn't even listen to fully, his voice shaking with rage as he called me a spoiled brat who couldn't handle not being the center of attention anymore. I've decided to take legal action. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with my lawyer to draft a formal cease and desist letter to Mom and Robert's family. I'm done trying to understand her choices or find a way forward. She hasn't just prioritized her new family anymore, she's actively erased precious memories of her old one. Dorothy has been my rock through all of this. Tonight, as we sat in Emily's nursery, she promised me that we would create our own traditions and memories for our daughter. Maybe someday, when Emily's older, I'll start a new watch collection for her, one that tells the story of our family, including the hard lessons we learned about love, loyalty, and standing up for what's right. Final update. I've debated whether to write this final update, but I feel I owe it to everyone who has supported me through this journey to provide closure to this chapter of my life. Emma's wedding was last month, a fact I learned through the flood of social media posts that seemed to fill every platform. My mom, true to form, went above and beyond for the celebration. According to relatives who attended, it was an extravagant affair at an upscale vineyard, with no expense spared. Mom posted dozens of perfectly staged photos, each caption more effusive than the last, talking about her beautiful daughter and how blessed she was to have gained such a perfect family through Robert. The speech she gave at the reception was apparently quite emotional. My cousin recorded parts of it, thinking I might want to see it someday. I didn't, but she described it anyway. Mom spoke at length about how God had blessed her with wonderful children through Robert, and how Emma was the daughter she'd always dreamed of having. She never once mentioned me, Dorothy, or Emily. Several relatives told me they felt uncomfortable during the speech, noting how she seemed to be trying too hard to prove something to everyone present. The day after the wedding, as if on cue, Mom reached out again. Her message started with what seemed like an olive branch. She acknowledged that she had made some mistakes but hoped we could move forward now that the stress of the wedding was over. She mentioned that Emma had just discovered she was pregnant, barely a month after the wedding, and wouldn't it be wonderful for Emily to have a cousin so close to her age? The way she phrased it made it clear she saw this as an opportunity to force a relationship between her two families, as if Emma's pregnancy somehow erased everything that had happened. Instead of responding directly, I sent her the final version of the legal document my lawyer had prepared. It was comprehensive, detailing everything from her abandonment during Dorothy's pregnancy to the selling of Dad's watches. The document formally requested no contact and outlined potential legal consequences if she persisted in trying to reach us. She showed up at our house the next morning, her eyes red from crying. She carried a shopping bag filled with some of my old baby clothes, items she claimed she had saved specially and hadn't given to Emma. I recognized them as the less desirable pieces that Emma probably hadn't wanted. I didn't open the door, but I could see her through the security camera, pacing on our porch and repeatedly pressing the doorbell. Through the door, I told her that she had made her choice months ago, and now she had to live with it. She tried to argue, saying that family should always forgive, but her words rang hollow after everything that had happened. Eventually, she left the bag of baby clothes on our porch and drove away sobbing. Robert called later that day, not to apologize, but to berate me for making Mom feel guilty during what should have been a joyous time celebrating Emma's pregnancy. He actually had the audacity to say that Mom couldn't even properly enjoy the news of becoming a grandmother because she was too upset about our situation. The irony of his words wasn't lost on me. He seemed to have forgotten that she already was a grandmother, to Emily, whom she had chosen to abandon. I hung up without saying a word. That was the final straw. Dorothy and I had already been house hunting, and this incident pushed us to accelerate our plans. We've since moved to a new neighborhood across town, close to Dorothy's sister and her family. Emily, now 9 months old, is thriving. She's starting to crawl, and her laugh lights up every room she's in. We're building new traditions, Sunday brunches with Dorothy's family, monthly trips to the local children's museum, and a memory box where we store little mementos from all of Emily's firsts. Sometimes, usually late at night when I'm rocking Emily to sleep, I catch myself feeling a deep sadness about how things turned out with Mom. I mourn not just for my loss, but for Emily's, for the grandmother she could have had, for the family stories she'll never hear firsthand, for the relationships that could have been. But then Emily snuggles closer in her sleep, and I'm reminded that my primary job as her father is to protect her from pain, even if that pain comes from family. I've heard through relatives that Mom isn't doing well. The guilt of her choices seems to be catching up with her, especially now that the excitement of Emma's wedding has faded and Emma's pregnancy is reminding her of what she missed with Emily. But I can't bring myself to care anymore. She made her choices, repeatedly choosing her new family over her existing one. Now she has to live with the consequences. Emily will grow up knowing she is loved unconditionally and prioritized completely. She'll learn about her grandfather through the stories I can still tell, through the few photos I have, and through the values he instilled in me that I'm passing on to her. And maybe that's enough.